Welcome to the Midnight Quilt Show. Tonight, it's gonna look like a rainbow exploded in my quilting room because I'm working on a quilt with lots of bright, fun, solid colors, including some red, and also some curved piecing, which isn't as hard as it looks. I'll show you how. Okay, now don't be mad, but I may have went ahead and got started. My mother-in-law picked up the kids from school, which meant I didn't have to wait till midnight to do my sewing. So I've already got my half square triangles, my blocks cut, and my 9 patch. Now all I have to do is the curved piecing. But first, let me show you the fun fabrics I've been working with. I wasn't kidding when I said it looked like a rainbow exploded in my quilting room. Look at all these beautiful shades. In fact, the kit comes with 22 beautiful solids, which means I don't have to take time trying to pull from my stash. I can get right to the best part, the sewing. So to get started making this quilt, which is called the Color Block Quilt, it's designed by Carl Hensch, and the kit includes all the fabric that you need, and it also includes the pattern for the curved piecing. But before I can start doing that, I need to get out my handy dandy template plastic. Now this is just some thin plastic you can buy anywhere, and if you can't find it, file folders, cereal boxes, surely there's something in family member's stash that you can find that will work. Since the template has a nice right angle, I can line up the corner of my plastic right over that design. And I'm working with the piece 2 right here. And I'm just going to trace it out so that I can cut it out. Now I really should take my time here and make sure I have a nice, smooth line, because if I'm gonna be recreating this over and over again, I wanna make sure it's correct. And that looks good enough for me. And I'm gonna do the same with the other one, with piece 1. Lining it up with that right angle. And I'm gonna try to draw this curve nice and smooth, which is why it's very important that I haven't taken a sip of my quilting juice yet. I'm gonna wait till I get this part done and then go ahead. Pink is such a pretty color. I've got my shapes drawn out. I have my scissors, and all I have to do is cut it out at this point. Of course, these are not my fabric scissors. And usually what I do is just rough cut it out of the plastic. So now I'm hanging on to a smaller piece. I'm just gonna cut on that line. That is a crooked line, my goodness. We'll see what kind of curves I get out of this. Now this block is actually a variation of the Drunkard's path, which is why it's so perfect for the Midnight Quilt Show. Just kidding. Got my pieces, I'm gonna lay them back on there, just a quick check to make sure that they're the right size. And that, my friend, is close enough for government work. Okay, template's done, now it's time to trace. This is where you channel your inner, kindergarten self. Although I never did good in tracing. I'm gonna line it where I need it, and then just draw a line. You could use any marking utensil for this. I prefer the classic Bic pen, because it really just speaks to me. It really does. It says, Angela, use me. Do the next. Now the good thing is I know I have about a 1/4 inch of wiggle room, so if it's not perfect, it'll be fine. Will it be show worthy? Probably not. Do I care? Definitely not. Like that, the line is drawn, and it's time to cut on the line. Oh geez, what am I doing? These aren't real scissors, those are just paper scissors. I need my actual fabric scissors. You're my favorite. Funny, I think when I start, I'm gonna be all precise, but by the time I get to the end, I'll be like, I don't care, whatever. And there it is, looking perfect. It's the time of the night for P&S. Pin and sew. So here's where the scary part comes in. How do I turn those 2 pieces into a 1 curved piece? Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is try to find the middle point of each side. That's gonna give me kind of a registration mark so that when I start pinning it, I can kind of make sure it's gonna turn out all right. So what I'm gonna do is take the little smiley piece, turn that frown upside down, and I'm gonna put it over on top, and that's gonna be the side that I sew from. The reason is this little smiley piece is really good and stretchy, so I can make it work around that curved piece. So I'm lining up my 2 folds, and I'm gonna put a pin in it. Get it? Put a pin in it. That's quilter's humor there. And then what I'm going to do is ease it around and pin it every so often just to help hold it in place. Now, if there's one thing I know is that curved piecing is a lot like free motion quilting. There's a lot of fudging that goes into it, a lot of tweaking and stretching. So I'm mostly just pinning this so I have a good idea where I'm heading. Lining up those points, and then adding a pin every, I don't know, depends on how motivated I am, every 1/2 inch or so. It's funny, my mom offered to pick up the kids from school. My mother-in-law, I call her mom. My mother-in-law picked the kids up from school, and I thought, man, I should do something really adult and responsible. Do laundry. And I started laughing, that was hilarious. Heck no, I had a brand new quilt kit to start cutting into, and that's why I just could not wait. I always say it's great when the kids are gone just long enough for me to miss them. So that's what it's gonna look like. Kind of weird and misshapen, but I know it's gonna turn out all right once I get to sewing. And if it doesn't, then it's gonna have to be all right because I've got a lot of these little things to make. Okay, I'm gonna set it in the machine and I'm gonna work my way around that slowly, stitching, and I'm taking those pins out as I get close. Although these are nice and thin pins, so if I have to run over it, it's fine. And I'm just trying to look right ahead of my presser foot and keep that fabric right there in line. So I'm not so much looking at the whole curve and trying to like wrench it in, I'm just adjusting the next little bit. Little bits. Now what's awesome is if I get any tucks or anything, I know I can iron it into submission. The little pins are best for this. I have a long arm at my quilt shop and I use big corsage pins for that. Those are not gonna work because they're hanging out too far. But these little bitty pins are perfect. All right, it's the moment of truth. Let me see how that turned out. That's not so bad. I'll show you. So as you can see here, I've got my curved piece. You can tell I got a little tuck in there, but man, after I quilt that, it's not gonna be noticeable at all. So next it's time to iron. Most of the time when you're quilting, you're taught to iron the seams in different directions, that way they nest together. But with these curves, I actually want them going all the same direction. That way when the whole circle piece comes together, it's one consistent way. It doesn't matter which way, you can choose, just do it all the time. So for me, I'm gonna press away from the curve. Got my handy little perfect size travel iron. And oh, by the way, if you want any of the fabric or supplies that I'm using, you can find the information in the description box below. And that, if I do say so myself, is a pretty decent curved block. That's actually pretty good for me. So I've got a few more that I finished. Perfect, again, they're all pressed in the same direction. That's gonna make it a lot easier later on when I put this quilt together. And I've already been busy on some curved pieces, so I'm gonna lay out the first block so you can see what it is it's gonna look like. So here's block one in all its colorful glory. All I have to do is sew up the rows, and then sew the rows together. Well, I effed up. This is what happens when you drink too much when you're piecing. So here and here needs to change, so I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, I'm calm. I've got my mistakes fixed. Thank goodness my kids weren't here to hear the cussing. Oh, man, it's wrong. Oh, it's just upside down. Oh, goodness. Oh, that really had me worried. Okay. Whew, that really should not have been as hard as it was, but I finally have a beautiful block. I not only have one, I have two beautiful blocks. And this is gonna actually make the center of my quilt. I'm so excited. The only thing I'm not sure of is why I have this extra block. I'm not sure. Okay, never mind. Now to get the rest ready. This row makes the center of the quilt. Now all I have to do is add the rows to either side of it to make the finished quilt. Whew, this quilt top is done and I am so impressed I actually finished it. I'm even more impressed by the beautiful secondary designs that come out once the blocks come together. I mean, look at this circle. That wasn't there until I put the blocks together. I cannot wait to quilt it. But first, I have to make it into a quilt sandwich. I like to joke that if quilting is my therapy, then threads are my meds. And picking out the thread colors to quilt with is almost as much fun as actually picking out the fabric. And what I've done is pulled together my favorite threads so I can pick out which ones I'm going to use. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to find a thread color that's gonna blend over a range of colors, something that I can use in more than just one place. Now I'm sure you're wondering, what kind of thread is that? It's actually a 50 weight thread, which means it's thin and it's gonna blend in nicely. And I've already decided that this orange is gonna be perfect in this block right here. The fact that it blends in means that it's gonna hide a lot of quilting mistakes, which is just perfect for me. I think also that this teal right here is just perfect for the green. Now when you're picking out colors, you don't have to stick with the exact color. You might find one that works perfect in a different type. So over here, in this green, I think that's gonna look nice. Plus, I don't happen to have the perfect color for that anyway, so that's the one I'm gonna go with. And I'm thinking that this blue, no matter how messed up it is, it's gonna be perfect for my blue block. And if I change my mind while I'm going, that's no problem either. So I have my thread colors picked out, I'm going with the orange, and I'm ready to start quilting after one quick sip. In the circles, I'm playing with a variation of continuous curve, and it's really easy to quilt because I can use the seams as my guide. So starting from one point, I'm quilting a line that curves out towards the center, and then out again towards the middle of that first curve, and then back. And I'm working my way around, going from point to the center, to middle, to center, and on and on and on. Then once I'm done with that, if I want to, I can stitch around the seam of my circle and get it nice and flat, which, because I like stitching in the ditch, call me crazy, I'm gonna go ahead and do. That's just so crazy. You so crazy. Now, stitching in the seams around a curve is not always easy. In fact, really, it rarely is. But that's where the matching thread color really helps, and that's also where having your seams all pressed one direction helps as well. And as you can tell, it's not perfect, but close enough is good enough. Now, if you don't want to spend all night quilting or you want to turn in early, I have some quilting diagrams that you can find. The information is in the description box below. Now, what I've done here is just quilt some nice basic swirls. They're always a great option if the person that you've made the quilt for isn't necessarily quilt worthy. I mean, come on, you know it's true. There's people that you love that aren't quilt worthy. No? Just me? Okay, I wasn't talking about you, Mom. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and finish quilting this up so I can see what it looks like when it's all done. Now, I love to quilt a quilt to death, so I'm gonna do a bunch of different stuff on here, but don't worry, you'll see it soon, and I'll make sure to include that on the diagrams as well. I had so much fun working on this quilt, doing some curve piecing and some color placement, even if it didn't always turn out right the first time, or at all. That's right, if this quilt is not perfect, there's some colors that might not be in the right place, but no fair looking. Like I always say, close enough is good enough. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode of the Midnight Quilt Show, and give me a thumbs up and a comment below to let me know what you think. Until then, I'm going to try to finish this popcorn before the kids come home.